another episode of Vital Signs. I'm Wild Wayne, and we're doing it in conjunction with UMC. So today, we have Dr. Erica Rajo, and she is a behavioral psychologist. I got it right?
Trauma psychologist.
A trauma psychologist, okay.
Yes.
I was close.
You were so close.
And sometimes there is behavioral trauma that goes on.
Oh, absolutely.
But we're in the holiday season.
Yes.
And a lot of time, things are not as joyous as you would anticipate them being during the holidays. There's a lot of stress going on, whether it be the holidays or just society in general, and it gets exacerbated when we do have the holidays going on. So what is going on with that? Like, how do you explain these things?
Absolutely. I mean, when the holidays approach, it's not like all your other stressors just disappear, right? It just adds on top of it. And if you're like me, they just sneak up on you. I don't even know how it's almost the holidays, how it's almost Thanksgiving already.
Right.
So that can be stressful, just thinking about, how do I prepare for this event or that event? I need outfits or food or gifts, right? Like, there's a million things to think about if you're just thinking about prep for the holidays. If you have kids, I'm sure they have lists of things.
Long list,
right?
Long list.
And you're thinking about finances, how am I gonna cover all this? But one of the common stressors during the holidays that people talk about in my work is family stress and family dynamic. So that can be really difficult on top of the other stressors. And research shows that your relationships with your family members really do impact your overall well-being.
And sometimes it's already not healthy family relationships, and you're kind of forced to be with people.
Exactly.
Or maybe you're dealing with family grief that, now you have a holiday situation and you've never had that particular family member not there.
Absolutely.
Or maybe you just have a contentious relationship that you have to figure out, how am I gonna maneuver through this holiday season and not take away the joy of the holidays?
Yep.
What are ways that people can figure those things out?
Absolutely. So one thing I would say is to think ahead, prepare mentally and emotionally. If you go to therapy, that might be something you talk about in therapy for the weeks, months prior. But just thinking ahead about like what might be particularly stressful in a family dynamic. Is it a particular person? Is it a particular topic of conversation? Right now, with everything going on in the world and our socio-political climate, that might be a heated topic.
Yeah, and that might be one of those taboo subjects that you avoid.
Exactly.
Because people are very polarized during this period on who they like or why they like them or why they don't like them. And you're never gonna have people that exactly agree.
Yep.
And it can get heated.
Oh, real quick.
Right. I choose not to talk about it with a lot of people because you just don't know where they lie.
Yep. And even, with family members, they might have opposing views. And, when we're around our family, our guard's down. And so we might just be a little bit more candid than usual. It might get heated real quick. So it could, to take care of yourself, avoiding conversations or topics that could be triggering or particularly stressful during the holiday season is one tip for sure. Other things I would say, self-awareness is key. You really want to pay attention. It's easy to focus on like everybody else and think like, oh, if this aunt is gonna say this or do this or be this way. But also think about yourself, right? Like, how am I feeling going into this? What can I do to put myself in the best position to tolerate?
So I smiled because I was envisioning these conversations over turkey. And you kind of know certain family members are adversarial, and you're on edge, waiting for that moment. But you say there's a better way to handle that.
Yeah, so if you are taking care of yourself leading up to it, and then in the situation being aware of how you're feeling, like if you are activated or you feel like something in the conversation, you feel a shift in your body, notice what you're feeling, because the only way to respond to that and take care of yourself is by noticing it's happening, right? So if something someone said made you angry or made you sad, if you notice that, then you can do something for yourself. That might be excuse yourself from the conversation politely. It might be just taking some deep breaths, sitting right there at the dinner table.
Right.
But that self-awareness is key.
Now, I had a conversation with one of my cousins just yesterday, ironically, and it fits into that piece of the puzzle, right? It was the 2 P's, and it was pause and patience. Like, and how that can really change the outcome. Like,
Absolutely.
if you have a chance to, instead of quickly responding,
Yes.
and especially sometimes in an agitated way, if you just digest it, like sometimes the adversarial will just kind of fade off if they don't feel like they have to attack you because you're attacking them, because you're attacking them and they're attacking you.
Right.
So, well, pause and patience was like something we had in another conversation, but it would fit there as well. Now, what happens, you're talking about holiday stress, and we talked about maybe it being financial or the dynamics of the family, or what happens to situational trauma or stress in terms of like a place? So what if it's you are meeting at your old home that you grew up in, or a place that you had always gone to traditionally, and there's some bad memories?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, that preparation and thinking ahead of what might be triggering or activating or upsetting to you in that environment. Also, I know this might sound wild, but you don't have to go anywhere if you feel like that is not good for your well-being at that time. You don't have to go to every single family event during the holidays. If there's one that feels particularly overwhelming, it's okay to say you can't make it, right?
Maybe you could do a Zoom, and that way you can see everybody, but you don't have to be stuck.
That's a great suggestion. And if you do go and you do feel overwhelmed in that environment or that situation at any point, having tools to take care of yourself in the moment is key. So things like grounding or deep breathing or meditation, so that in that moment, if you're feeling triggered back to another time where something else happened, you can kind of come back to the present, remind yourself that you're safe. If you need to excuse yourself again, that's okay.
Right. That kind of makes sense. Like, I always remember you had some family members and you're like, well, they only call when everybody's around, but you never see them. But maybe that's their protective mechanism, so that they don't have to get into maybe one of those heated exchanges.
Yeah, but also like if there's a person in your family that you do feel comfortable with, that you do feel supported by, you can sit by them at the table, and that can help kind of calm you in the stressful situation. And maybe you tell them ahead of time, I'm feeling a little bit nervous going into this. You got my back?
Right. And I think those are good things. Communication, of the utmost importance. So that's some good tips for people when we move into the season, because it's upon us, and for the next month and a half or so, going into the new year, we'll have these things that'll be right there in our face. And if you don't know how to cope, it can make that holiday season a miserable one.
Absolutely. And another thing that I think is important to mention is when we do go back into these situations with our family of origin, we might unconsciously just fall back into patterns that were present when we were living in the household growing up. And so that's important to think about too. Like you might, if you're the younger sibling, let's say you go back and you're with your older siblings, you might fall back into that role where, they're bossing you around or they're picking, whatever the dynamic is, that can naturally occur in these situations. And so being mindful of that and just, again, trying to stay present.
Now, did you have to deal with this personally?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm Latina, so I'm Cuban and Honduran, and we usually do Cuban, we celebrate on Christmas Eve, and let me tell you, we are loud. So my family is so loud. I mean, I feel like when I leave, my ears are like ringing because it's just talking. We talk loud. But yeah, there's dynamics, there's differences in political views, and So, I've learned from, trial and error, what can be discussed at the dinner table, which probably should not, and just to try to make it, a pleasant experience for everyone, including, the elders in the family.
Right,
You don't want to stress them out.
Right. Of
You
course.
do not want to make Nima mad, let me tell you.
Right. And she's gonna sit everything down. Everything's
and
gonna get.
Nima's the cook too,
Oh,
so
yeah.
she's gonna make your plate, and you want it to be good.
Right. You don't want the skimpy plate. You want it loaded up with Mima's good food.
Yes.
But I think those are all excellent points that people need to do their self-preparation for, because we talked about many various topics. I'm sure some topic resonated with someone out there, and some different ways to avoid that holiday stress. So I thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's a good conversation. It's good medical and psychological help that we're giving people with the vital signs. And I need to get you back on because I definitely want to talk about generational trauma at some point. I know you specialize in those various things. Today, Dr. Erica Raho.
Thank you.
And we'll be back.